Now, what we've seen happen through the Ukraine and Russian conflict, through the pandemic, through COVID, we have a significant restriction on supply. So like at the housing market, for an example. In the housing market, pre-pandemic, in the United States, we had about 1.3 million houses for sale, okay? Now, what we have right now is at the beginning of January, we only had 400,000 houses for sale. So we have 1/3 the available houses for sale than we did just 2 years ago, and then compound that with the fact that delivering these houses is now, we're not able to get the raw materials from China. We now have a government that basically paid people more money to stay at home than actually go and get a job. Then on top of that, we now have the Russian-Ukraine conflict, which is restricting oil, which is going ahead and restricting gases that we need to create different types of metal. So we now are in a situation where we have such an issue with the amount of supply of goods out there that even if we quell demand, and let's say we can take 30% of people that would normally want to buy a house, and we can take them off the market because we make rates so high. Well, if we're only delivering half the houses we need, we still have an issue where we have more people wanting to buy a home than there are houses, which is going to continue to put house prices up.
Fake news, fake woke, distract and divide. You're either right or you're left, or you're black or you're white. Big tech don't need a microchip to hack in your life, because the phone inside your pocket is a tracking device.
Welcome to Our Watch with Tim Thompson. I am here with my guest today, Brian Decker. Brian, so good to be here with you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me, Tim.
Yeah, tell the audience, if you would, a little something about yourself.
Yeah, so I am right now a mortgage banker by trade, but I went to school here locally in Southern California, graduated school, became an accounting major, got out of school and got into the mortgage business kind of right in the housing bubble, and then stayed with that for a number of years. The market crashed. And when the market crashed, everybody kind of, fleed to different type of debt consolidation, solar loans. And I just kind of made the commitment to myself that this was a quick career. I wasn't going to quit. And so worked my way up as a loan officer over the years and became one of the top 2 or 3 loan officers in the country. Started my own mortgage bank here locally in Temecula, where I was kind of born and raised. And since then, kind of have my hands in a little bit of everything. I am a CEO of a crypto research company. I go ahead and sit on the board of a couple different types of mortgage banks. Really have my hands in a lot of real estate investments, everything from kind of building multifamilies to Airbnbs, kind of really entrepreneur by trade, but really kind of focused on housing and mortgage and finance.
And you're a man of faith as well.
Absolutely. I actually graduated from Biola University. My father and mother were an unbelievable influence in my life. My dad we originally were actually Catholic growing up, and my dad at about 22 years old kind of made really kind of for the first time in his life, really kind of took learning the Bible biblically on his own, because he grew up in a typical kind of large family Catholic household. And then we went ahead and made the move to a non-denominational Christian church here in Temecula. So was brought up through that my whole life. Went to Linfield Christian School here, thanks to my dad's boss who paid for me to go to school there, and went to Biola University. I really gave my life, to God when in 9th grade, actually, when I was up at a camp retreat up at Linfield. And just like anything else in life, I've had my trials and tribulations, but been, very, very fortunate to, meet and marry a beautiful Christian woman. And we have 2 lovely children here today. And we actually, go to a 412 church, whenever we're here locally in town, or if not, we Zoom you live on everything else. And so it's been definitely something that's really helped me, keep my focus on, money can be used for great things, but you also got to be careful because it can definitely lead you down a dangerous path if you're not handling it the correct way.
Right. There are 3 things that God blesses when it comes to finances. A lot of people talk to me about this, like, Pastor Tim, I want to get involved in this, or should I put my money into that? And really, I'm the wrong guy to ask when it comes to those things. All I can tell people is, look, here are the 3 ways God will bless your money, and it's hard work, investment, and inheritance. That's it.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
I really love that list. First off, I'm probably the biggest proponent, if you're going to put those in order, inheritance, it can come to some, but it's not really, people shouldn't count their wealth success and they're leaving a legacy for their children, hoping that they'll have a rich aunt or rich uncle, right? And so I think inheritance is a very nice thing if it's bestowed upon people, but for the average person, really focusing on the first two that you said is really key. And I think you look back, and I was very fortunate to grow up around my father. My father did not come from any money. And I remembered as a very young kid, my dad would get up at 3 a.m. and he would work out of our kitchen, putting like patches on hats. Did that for about 2 to 3 hours in the morning, went and worked a full day, came home, still coached us, still played with us. We went to bed and he went and pressed more hats on. And so as a kid, I remember my dad telling me something in life, and he said, son, there's two things that you can do to make money in your life. Number one, you can have a really, really high IQ that no matter what you're going to really do, you're going to eventually have an idea that's going to hit. And that's kind of like playing the lottery, right? Or two, you can just simply outwork everyone. Most people, they do a job and they do a job till they're tired. You need to do a job until it's done. And if you can do that with everything you do, I guarantee you in life, son, you will find success. And so I have never been the smartest guy in the room, but I have let that really be something that really hit home is I will not take on something until I can complete it. So I'm a big creature of habit. Get up at 4 a.m. I do the exact same routine. I start my day the exact same way. I make sure at the beginning of every single day, I organize my task in a manner where I am attacking the most difficult things at my day in the very beginning of my day. I'm creating those kind of micro habits. And so I think a lot of times people, they go down a path of working hard. And as soon as something is a little bit more difficult than what they would like it to be, they say, oh, you know what? This isn't for me. Right. And many times success is just on the other side of that mountain. Right. And they're halfway up. And so I think if for anybody, I think people a lot of times, well, I'm not the smartest in the room. I'm not this in the room. Nor was I. I never was. But the one thing I made that commitment to myself, it's like you with our watch, right? You made that commitment to yourself to be excellent at this, not okay at this, not like I'm going to try. No, I'm going to be excellent at this. And so I think once people can actually find that they don't have to have some special talent, and it truly is just being the first one in, the first one out, and it's a long road. I mean, I've had money stolen from me countless times. I've been betrayed by business partners. Everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong, but I just never let it decline my work ethic, right? Yeah. And that's something that's always been very important to me. When you look at the current trends, financial trends right now, we see a lot of people who just aren't willing to work hard. Mm-hmm. And what type of impact do you see that having on our economy? Oh, it's huge. So you look at a couple different things. So right now we have really two types of demand, right, in the economy. You have buyer demand, which is simply people, oh, you know what? I got married. We're having kids. We need to move into a new house. Hey, our car died. We need a new car. Hey, you know what? I need to get my kids new schools. That's buyer demand. Then we have supply chain restricted demand, right? And now buyer demand, we can fix. If I raise interest rates like the Fed's doing, I can make borrowing money more expensive for mortgage rates, more expensive for auto loans, more expensive to invest in stocks. As an economy, I can suppress demand by raising the cost of borrowing. However, we right now have something that is called supply chain demand issues, right? Because we have supply chain issues. There's 3 of us, let's say sitting in a room, and if I bring in a basket of oranges and I have 2 oranges sitting there on the table, okay, you know what? There's not enough oranges for all of us to eat. We have a situation of supply demand. There's not enough supply to the demand, right? Now, what we've seen happen through the Ukraine and Russian conflict, through the pandemic, through COVID, we have a significant restriction on supply. So like at the housing market, for an example. In the housing market, pre-pandemic, in the United States, we had about 1.3 million houses for sale, okay? Now, what we have right now is at the beginning of January, we only had 400,000 houses for sale. So we have 1/3 the available houses for sale than we did just 2 years ago, and then compound that with the fact that delivering these houses is now, we're not able to get the raw materials from China. We now have a government that basically paid people more money to stay at home than actually go and get a job. Then on top of that, we now have the Russian-Ukraine conflict, which is restricting oil, which is going ahead and restricting gases that we need to create different types of metal. So we now are in a situation where we have such an issue with the amount of supply of goods out there that even if we quell demand, and let's say we can take 30% of people that would normally want to buy a house, and we can take them off the market because we make rates so high. Well, if we're only delivering half the houses we need, we still have an issue where we have more people wanting to buy a home than there are houses, which is going to continue to put house prices up. And so, I mean, we all know used cars don't normally double in value in 2 or 3 years, right? You know, but because of these supply chain issues, not getting chips for cars, we are in a time we have never seen before where the government can kill the buyer demand by raising rates, but they can't fix the supply chain issues. So we're in a very, very, very trying time economically.
Yeah, and in the midst of that, nobody wants to work. Yeah. It's, you know, we were talking earlier about how just building, people have been watching my studio here. They've been watching this grow over time. But man, you know, it's hard to get this thing moved quick because it's hard to get people to actually go to work.
Yep.
You know, and so that's a weird situation to be, but this shows what God talks about. God honors the hard work that we put in. And let's face it also, God has designed our bodies in such a way to where when we work hard, our bodies produce endorphins.
Yes.
We produce endorphins, we feel good. I mean, you feel good. A man at the end of the day feels good about himself when he worked hard for his family. And we see the family under attack on every level. When it comes to investments, we know investments is something that God has always honored. You even look at the parable of the talents and the wicked servant that buried his talents in the ground. And he's like, you wicked, wicked servant, you could have at least gone and put it with the bank and invested. At least I would have gotten something. And so God does honor investments. And a lot of people right now go, well, what should I invest in? You know, and that's a pretty big question. But if somebody were to ask you, hey, what should I invest in right now? What would be your top things?
Absolutely. So the first thing I like to tell people is when you're looking at investing, the very first thing, and it goes against what most people would think. So let's say if I came to you, Tim, and I said, okay, how about you give me $5,000 and I can guarantee you a 20% return on your money. You're like, Brian, that's amazing. Like, what should I do? First thing, pay off your credit cards. What people don't understand is they always say, oh, Brian, what stock should I do? Brian, you have a much money you made in crypto. Brian, you have all these houses. Okay, guess what though? The non-cool thing that I did before any of those investments took place was I eliminated all of my credit card debt. Because if you're going to take $1,000 and you're going to go in and let's say you're going to invest it in a particular stock, we'll say Netflix, that's been beaten down by 80%. And I said, you know, I think Netflix is probably going to go up 10% over the year. You're like, oh, that's fantastic. No, it's not. Because guess what? That $1,000, if you would have eliminated your 22% credit card interest rate on your Kohl's card, you're making 10% on that $1,000 here, but you're getting charged 22% interest on. You've still lost 10% of your money. So the very first thing I tell every person is I want you to go through your credit cards, itemize them from the most expensive interest rate to the least expensive interest rate and start attacking them. That is your investment. That is the best use of your funds right now. Now, once you've eliminated those credit cards, now we can actually start talking about some true investing strategies. And then once you look at that, you say, okay, the best thing you can ever do is have a diversified approach, because if you put all your money into housing or all your money into stocks or all your money, into crypto, you know what? Those are all going to hit at different periods of time. And the best thing that I tell somebody is when you're looking at investing, the best strategy you can ever use is what I call a dollar cost averaging method. Okay. So what that basically means is you're never going to be able to time the market. You aren't. If somebody could time the market, they would literally be the richest man in the world, right? It's impossible. But what you can do is buy the same amount of something, the same time every day. And it's that old saying, pay yourself first. That doesn't mean when you say pay yourself first, that doesn't mean go out and buy yourself a new car or new shoes. What that means is pay yourself first by investing so that you don't have to work the remaining part of your life. And I think a lot of that comes in the fact of is once you've eliminated those credit cards and those are gone, and let's say you were spending $500 to $1,000 a month on your credit cards. Well, now you've just freed up $500 to $1,000 a month of investing. So what I would basically do is number one, I would invest in something right now that's a value stock. So we just went through a period of time where everything was high growth. What that means is basically, even though somebody's earnings weren't very good as a company, these stocks, even like a stock like Tesla, were trading nearly 500-600 times their annual earnings, because you weren't betting on the now, you were betting on what the future of that company did. And that is a great way to invest when you have very low interest rates. But right now, the stocks, if I was going to tell somebody like 3 stocks to buy, number 1, buy Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has provided a raised dividend every year for 47 years. And guess what? Coca-Cola is an inexpensive beverage. It is what the mass amount, even though I'm a health guy and I don't drink Coca-Cola, but it's a fantastic, safe opportunity. And if you want to look at something else, what you always want to do if we enter a recessionary period, which I fully believe we're going to be officially declared a recession by about September or August, because the definition of a recession is 2 quarters of negative growth. That means, let's say my company, Modern Lending, uses an example. Let's say in the 4th quarter, to round numbers, we brought in $1 million in sales. And then in the 1st quarter of 2022, we brought in $900,000 in sales. Now, we still made sales. We didn't lose money, let's say, but we had negative growth from $1 million to $900,000. So what happens is when the United States economy has 2 quarters of negative growth, we are officially declared into a recession. We already had the 1st quarter of 2022 where we didn't grow, we were negative. The 2nd quarter of 2022, which will be obviously done at the end of June, they don't come out and tell us until August, but people will be therefore named that we're in a recession. The problem is when you get declared in a recession, you've already been in a recession for 6 months. So what you have to look for investing is what are value buys. So like something like Domino's. Let's say my wife and I, we would go out to Cheesecake Factory on a Friday night. Things tighten up. My wife still doesn't want to make dinner on Friday night, but instead of Cheesecake Factory, we'll order Domino's Pizza or Marco's Pizza, right? So another great play would be to invest in like Domino's Pizza, right? Something like that is a great way. And then the third thing I would invest with, and I know it's controversial to somebody, is get yourself invested in some Bitcoin. And I know people are like, oh, I heard that's a Ponzi scheme, oh, this. Well, everybody that's actually spent the time learning what Bitcoin is, well, there's one thing we all know. The United States government, they control our money. They put so much supply of money in the last 2 years in our government. They didn't create any additional wealth. So they flooded the market with United States dollars, which made our dollar not buy us as much, which we're all feeling in inflation. Well, Bitcoin is pre-programmed, and there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin ever in existence. That means only 21 million millionaires could ever even own a Bitcoin when you have close to 100 million millionaires in the world today. And so because of this, it's pre-programmed money, something that Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Chase, came out 4 years ago and said, if I ever find a single trader at JP Morgan buying Bitcoin, they will be immediately fired. Jamie Dimon now personally owns $200 million in Bitcoin 4 years later. Fidelity now owns Bitcoin as a fund. Bitcoin is a great inflation hedge. In the millennial generation and the Gen Z generation, they look at Bitcoin like my parents and grandparents looked at gold. Yeah. And so that for somebody, and you don't have to buy a Bitcoin, you can buy 1/1000th of a Bitcoin. So if I was going to tell somebody that, you were going to really look, pay off your credit cards. After that, look at buying some value stocks. Thirdly, slowly dollar cost average into some Bitcoin.
You know, I have a lot, I'm hearing what you're saying. Yeah. I have a lot of Christians that'll tell me, well, you know, Christians shouldn't invest in Bitcoin. Yeah. And, you know, I look at it from the biblical perspective is there are tons of corporations that we invest in as Christians, and they're pushing all sorts of radical left-wing agendas. Mm-hmm. And some people say, well, you're, you know, investing in the Bitcoin, that's bringing about the one world government where our money can be controlled, mm-hmm. and the Antichrist and all that. And I see that as well. But I see those things as an inevitability. Mm-hmm. You know, the Antichrist is going to rule. He is going to mm-hmm. control everybody's money. What do you say, or have you ever had a Christian come to you, oh, Christians shouldn't do that?
Yeah.
Have you had that?
Absolutely.
And what's your response?
So, and what I tell them is that, first off, when they talk about like a one money or a single money order, the big thing they have to understand is that is being controlled by somebody. And what people don't realize about Bitcoin is Bitcoin's not controlled at all. It's completely decentralized. There is not one single person on this earth that could say, I'm going to go make some Bitcoin right now. No, what Bitcoin is it was an algorithm. And that algorithm, basically very easily explained, is think of the internet today, right? The internet isn't bad, right? What's bad is pornographic websites, all the, bad social media, bullying. Internet itself is not bad. It's the uses of the internet and these applications that are bad. Well, Bitcoin is a network. That's what it actually is. It is a payment network where I could send from me to you. I could send you $1 of Bitcoin in a millisecond for free. Now, what I look at Bitcoin is bringing a way for people around the world. So El Salvador, for an example, it's one of the most impoverished countries in the world. Right now, you have Western Union. So I have my maid that works for us at our house. She sends back her family money to support them in El Salvador. What does she do? She goes to Western Union. Western Union charges her between 12 and 15% to send her money to their family in El Salvador. They get that money in El Salvador in 3 to 4 days. She's only getting 85% of what she's actually sending because of Western Union. Bitcoin, El Salvador just adopted Bitcoin as their currency because she can go and send instantly 100% of the value of whatever she's earning directly to them in Bitcoin, and then they can immediately convert that into any currency they want. I don't know about you, but that's an unbelievable use of technology to help all of these people. Now, at the same time, could somebody use Bitcoin and go out there and, buy an escort or buy drugs or buy any of these other things that you hear about? Absolutely. But there's not a government. And I don't know about you, but I personally trust a network a heck of a lot more than I trust the U.S. government right now.
There's a lot of things I trust more than U.S. government right now. We're out of time right now, but I want to give the audience the ability to connect with you. You've got a podcast. You've got all your social media stuff. How can people connect?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm probably most active on Instagram. I really try to teach people a lot of just wealth tips and how to, create wealth for their family and a lot of investing strategies. It's just the Brian Decker, and that's Brian with an I, the Brian Decker at Instagram, or they can go to YouTube and it's Dollars with Decker, like DECKER. And I put out a lot of content that way as well.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for being with us today. I want to thank all of you for joining us on Our Watch. We've got a lot of stuff we want to talk about next time about investments, not just investments, but also inheritance. I have a lot I want to tell you about inheritance. So we'll see you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson. God bless you.